To get started with the drawing portion of our giant pop art candy, you're going to choose one of the candy wrappers that I have printed out for you. Now they're in black and white, but for the drawing that really doesn't matter. You're going to start by folding it into either 4 or 8 sections. The more sections that you have to divide your paper, then the easier it's going to be to break things down into a grid. So I chose to fold mine into 8. You're going to fold your candy wrapper and the white paper the same amount of times. So you can take it, fold it in half one way, then we'll fold it in half the other way. But we're going to divide our wrapper and our paper into individual sections. If you would prefer, instead of folding your white paper, you could also use a ruler to divide it into the same equal amount of sections that you divided your reference picture in. But just make sure that if you have 4 sections for your reference wrapper, that you have 4 sections for your good copy. They have to be the same amount of sections, or when you're working in the grid to draw your work, it's not going to add up for you. So if you're choosing to draw them out instead of folding, you'll have to do the math on how to divide your paper into the exact same amount of sections that your candy wrapper reference paper was divided into. You need to make sure that you are keeping track of your individual little wrapper reference paper. It's your responsibility to make sure that is in your sketchbook and in a neat pile at the end of every class. If it falls out and your name's not on it, I will not know whose reference paper is whose, and it's going to get tricky for you moving forward. Since these are divided into sections, you can fold your paper so that you're only looking at one area at a time. I'm going to start in the top left. And since we're just working with one section at a time, kind of pretend that you don't have anything else on that paper. Don't think about the next section, just worry about one at a time. We are, as lightly as possible, trying to draw and recreate what we see in each section. I need you to remind yourself that we are giving ourselves grace, we are having patience, and we are just focusing on trying to draw what we see. It's okay if things don't work out perfectly for us. I hear a lot, especially from our 6th graders, that you guys claim that you don't know how to draw. So the point of this project is that we are working on practicing drawing so that you can be successful moving forward. This entire point of this project is to practice our drawing skills. So you need to work on drawing what you see in front of you and not drawing what you think your brain is looking at. We're going to really focus on getting as accurate details. In order to do that, you need to be working very lightly. If you're pushing down with your pencil, you're not going to be able to erase, and you will see erased lines if you push down too hard in this paper, especially when we move on to color. Those lines are still going to show up. So we should be barely touching our paper with our pencil as you're working. Once you finish one section, fold your little reference wrapper and move on to the next section. They're going to start connecting. So as you work, you'll notice that if you have, for example, the top of the cherry in my logo, the stem was going up through the first section, and when I moved on to the second section, that line connected. So make sure you're really working one at a time. It can be tempting to just draw that line where I think it's going to go, but instead of doing that, I'm working one section at a time and just drawing what I see. If you have areas where you can see a distinct highlight or shadow, I would lightly sketch that in so that when you go to color, you know where those lines or those pops of color are going to work for you. I would try to get as many of those details as possible. However, if you have an area where there's like really small lettering and you're struggling with the letters themselves, I think that as long as you have enough detail in the rest of your work, it could be okay to skip some of the small lettering areas, but we do really want to make sure that we're trying to recreate this as realistically as possible. So the drawing portion, we want to really focus on getting all of those details, but if you're more comfortable skipping some of the lettering, you can do that. You also could practice some of that lettering in your sketchbook. If you're a little bit intimidated by that, that's totally fine. This process will take time, probably a few weeks, and then once you're finished drawing, you're ready to look at how to add color and the color version of your wrapper so we can start using the color pencils.